good morning, y'all. It is currently 9:02. I just went on my break 2 minutes ago, y'all. I am feeling a whole lot better. I know the last time I picked up the camera, I was hurting. It's like 2 days later, and I am feeling a little bit better. So y'all, it's 9 o'clock, and I didn't eat anything for breakfast. So I decided that I was going to make this little lasagna, Stouffer's lasagna that I had picked up the other day. Actually, my last video y'all would have seen. I have not ate Stouffer's lasagna in so long. I don't really buy a lot of frozen stuff, but since it's just me, I decided to pick something up, y'all. I don't really have a taste for breakfast this morning, so I decided that I was gonna make that. It is done. It's been cooking for a while now. I got a couple minutes before I go back to work, so I'm actually gonna eat this for breakfast. I am starving. I'm gonna chill right here and I'm gonna eat. I've been letting it sit for a few minutes, so it's still hot, but not too hot. But yeah, I just wanted to come in and do some vlog and say, hey, y'all. Today is it was going to be a good day, y'all. My son, it's loud outside, y'all. I don't have the window open, but they are cutting grass. So today's gonna be a good day. My son, when I seen him at the hospital yesterday and I talked to the doctors, they said that everything looks good. They had to alter his medication, and so the medication that he's on now, it's a lot easier on his kidneys, and everything seems to be looking better since they had to alter his medication, start him on, at first they had him on 2 heart transplant medications. They lowered one of the dosage to a very low dose, and they added another medication, so he'll be taking 3 medicines instead of 2 that's catered to the heart transplant. And these medications he's going to be on for a little while. Well, I know some medications he's going to be on for the rest of his life, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and eat this, y'all. Oh yeah, today they said if everything looks good, they told me yesterday if everything looks good overnight and the rest of the day yesterday, that he could potentially go home today. Well, not home, but back here out of the hospital, discharged. So I haven't got a call or anything just yet from them. So I guess, you know, I will either call them to see if I have an update, or, you know, once I get there, I am going to go there today. I am going to go to the hospital today once I get off work at 2:30, and they'll probably update me on everything that's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and eat this. I probably have like 10 minutes before I got to go back to work. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and eat this real quick, and I will talk to y'all in a little while. Hey y'all, so I wanted to come in and add in this clip, y'all. As I was editing, I realized that I did not come back and let y'all know what was going on, so I figured I would take the time today to let y'all know what's been going on. So as I was editing, I think in the previous clip y'all would have seen that I was getting myself together. I was talking about my son and him potentially being able to go home, and then I didn't have any more footage after that. So pretty much part of the reasons why I did not continue to film, and it took me several days, possibly a week, before I could pick up the camera again, was because I was very emotional. I was upset and I was very emotional, and I just could not get myself together. I did a lot of crying for several days, not understanding why my son is having to continue to go through what he's going through. Even talking about it, I'm already starting to feel like I'm about to tear up. But I wanted to be able to get this out to y'all, because as I'm continue to film my other videos, once I got myself together, my other videos, I'm kind of mentioning it here and there, and then also future videos you're going to see what I'm talking about. I didn't want to confuse y'all. So pretty much just to kind of give y'all a background of what ended up happening, My son, he did get released from the hospital. I believe it was on a Thursday. And his breathing was a little heavy, but they wasn't too concerned about it. They just figured that he just needed time. We ended up getting released from the hospital that Thursday, and we got home. We stayed overnight, and then Friday, I'm working, of course, and I'm noticing his breathing. I've been really been keeping an eye on it, because to me, his breathing was abnormal. How he was breathing, how loud it was just abnormal to me. I also noticed too, my son could barely walk. Walking from the parking lot to the apartments that we're staying in, he will have to take a break. And it wasn't a long walk. We at the parking lot, we walk down the sidewalk, and we go to the apartments, which we're staying in the first floor. This is a house. I'm currently at home right now, which I'm going to be heading back there. But the place that we've been temporarily been staying at, it's on the first floor. So, walking from the sidewalk from the apartments, he literally had to take like 2 or 3 breaks. That's one thing I noticed that was concerning. I'm like, he can't even walk, like that's not even a long distance, and he was just super, super tired. So I noticed that, and then, I'm thinking, okay, the doctors, they didn't find anything too concerning, maybe let me just keep an eye on him just to see how things are. Friday came, get up, get for work. I get up, I get to work, I'm checking on him continuously while I'm working, and I'm noticing, I'm like, hey, Cam, are you okay? Like, are you having any issues breathing or anything like that? And he was like, no. He told me no, he was fine. I think I asked him again later on, like, are you okay? Is everything all fine? He did go from the secondary bedroom, into the living room, and I was working in the room, and I noticed he was like, I'm like, the way he sounds, it was like, yo, you sound like you've been running, like you just ran a marathon and you're out of breath. But he just literally went from the secondary bedroom to the living room. So I was like, are you okay? And he was like, are you having any issues? And like, you just seem like you're having to work a whole lot, and you're not really doing a whole lot of work. You know what I'm saying? You're not doing a whole lot. And I asked him, I said, hey, I don't like your breathing. I don't like how you sound. I'm like, what's wrong? Something's going on? And I asked him, are you experiencing shortness of breath? Are you tired? So he said that he was a little out of breath, but not too concerning. So I end up just told him, I was like, okay, I don't want to jump to conclusion. I said, let's just rest. I said, don't get back up. Let's rest, and let's see how you do. I went back to work. He was close to me, so I could really see him and I could hear him. So I was continuously checking up on him while I was finishing my shift. At this time, half of my shift was over with, and he was just there. So fast forward, I'm off work, and I'm looking at him, and I believe he told me he got up and he ended up going to the bathroom, and he ended up sitting down. And I'm also noticing again, I'm like, are you okay? Are you experiencing any issues? Like, what's going on? I need you to communicate with me. And he said, yeah, he is having a hard time breathing a little bit. So that was my cue. I was like, I don't like how he's looking. I don't like how he's sounding. I did end up calling the cardiology. I have like a personal way I can get in contact with them if I have any issues. So I contact them. I was like, hey, this is what's going on with him. I was like, I'm a little nervous. It's concerning to me. This is abnormal. When he left, I did explain when he did leave, he was feeling like this as well. But anyways, they said, hey, let's just go to the ER. You go to the ER. I'll let them know that you're coming for them to look for you, and we'll get him looked at like right away. So we ended up going to the ER, back to the same hospital that he had his heart transplant at, and pretty much where he's been at. And you know, my son, I think he was a little disappointed because he did not want to go back to the hospital. But I had to explain to him, I was like, hey, you know, I know you've been in and out the hospital all year long. And I kind of got emotional a little bit because he's like, I'm just tired of being in the hospital. I've been in the hospital off and on all year long. And he just don't want to have to keep on going because every time he goes, he end up having to be admitted. So, but I explained to him like, hey, you know, I understand you don't want to go to the hospital, but if you're not feeling well, it's very important that we get this looked at because whatever's going on, it's going to get worse. And I'd rather be able to jump and get it fixed and that we know what's going on. So he understood. He's like, you know, we got to take me. Just take me. If you feel like something, and when he says that, I think he know that something's not right. He can tell that, hey, I'm really having a hard time breathing. And so he was okay with it eventually after I talked to him. And he was like, you know, if you have to take me, take me. I was like, he didn't want to be readmitted, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So we get to the ER, and pretty much, yes, they did end up admitting him. And I ended up finding out that he had to get his trach, he has to get his trach put back in. Basically, his airway was very, very, very narrow. Meaning that typically our airway might be like this big, but it was very, very narrow where it's like so tight. He was having a hard time breathing. He just could not do a lot of breathing. And when your airway is not getting what it needs in and out, you'll be able to breathe normally. It does affect his other parts of his body. And just keep in mind, he had just got a heart transplant about, 2 months ago? About 2 months ago. So that's also putting more work on his heart, and it's putting more work on his rest of his body because his airway is just not open like it's supposed to. He's not able to breathe like he needs to. So they end up having to do a trach. I'm going to be honest. I was very, very emotional about it. I did not want him to get the trach. Not that, let me rephrase that, because it's not like I did not want him to get it. It was how my son felt when he got the first procedure done and needed to get a trach back in March of this year. If it's necessary to save his life for him to be able to he needs to have a trach, then it is what it is. He has to get it. That's not when I say I did not want him to get a trach. That's not what I meant. It's more of if he has to get it because his body is just not ready to have it removed, then I understand. And we have to do what we have to do to make sure he's okay, and to make sure he's okay pretty much. Because without it, he can't continue to go on because his airway is going to continue to get smaller and smaller, and he won't be able to breathe, which then could cause him his life. So, and sometimes depending on how severe it is, you know, this could be a temporary situation made into a more of a permanent situation, and I did not want that neither. This situation was very, very emotional for me, because I know how it was for him when he originally had got it back in April. My son was he was going through a lot of mental issues. Mental issues. My son was suicidal. He was really acting out. His behavior had got really worse once he came home after having to wear the life vest and also needing the trach. His self-esteem was very down, and it was very difficult. So from when he got released from April all the way into August, life was so complicated, y'all. I'm talking about it was an emotional roller coaster. I felt so bad for my son. I had to end up putting him on some type of medication to try to relax him and help with his anxiety. I was starting to take him to a therapist to try to cope with what he was dealing with. It was very, very a tough time. And when I say I did not want him to get it back, that's what I meant, because I was afraid that he was going to turn around and be that way. I hated seeing my son like that. It was so hard, y'all. It was so, so hard. And I felt kind of useless because I couldn't help him. You know, I would talk to him. I would try to get him to not feel the way he feels, try to change his mindset. But at the end of the day, you're talking about at that time he was 11, he wasn't 12 yet, but you're talking about an 11-year-old to tell them, you know, everything's gonna be okay. And to him, to him, things are not okay. It's not what they used to be. So when I say I did not want him to get the trig, not want him to get it because if it's medically necessary, then I am okay with it because I want my son here. I don't want to make the situation a lot worse than what it needs to be. But I was afraid that my son was going to turn around and be back how he was. It was really hard. It was hard seeing him like that, and I could not do anything to try to make it better. I ended up telling him he needed it. He was so disappointed. So that's kind of why I had stopped vlogging for a while, because, you know, I was more concerned about him and his mental health and how he was going to handle having to get the trach put back in, and trying to explain to him that, hey, your body's just not ready. And they believe that he may end up having to have it for over a year, maybe longer. Especially now that he has a heart transplant, he has to frequently be seen. He has to frequently have to get biopsy done just to make sure there's no signs of like rejections and stuff like that. That first year, it's more intense. It'll go from every week to like every 2 weeks, every month for that first year is how it is. And then after that, they said, depending on how things go, we could possibly look into trying to remove it, but we don't know. We don't know how his body is going to respond. But because he has to constantly get a biopsy done to check his heart, that does require them to have to stick the breathing tube down his airway, which I think that's the issue. I think having to continuously go in his airway like that when his airway is very sensitive, they just don't want to chance it. They want to be able to keep that in right now. So you go from the beginning of the year, January, into now, you have all these health issues. You back and forth in the hospital. Your life did a whole 360. You know, you started with having 3 strokes to now found out you had a heart condition, a very, very rare and serious heart condition, and you have to wear a life vest, to then finding out you was having issues breathing, having to get a trach put in, and your life is limited. You come home and you can't do the things you used to do. You just had limitations. You had nurses and things like that here with you, so it was just very difficult for him. Well, having your son dealing with all that, and then here we are, his heart situation ended up getting worse. We had to rush and come down a whole nother city, an hour and 30 minutes away, to just telling him, hey, you know, I know this is a huge procedure, but this is what's going to be necessary, because, you know, if we continue the way that we're going, then you may not be able to be here too much longer with the way that your heart is going. It's starting to affect your other organs. It's not performing well. It's just not where it needs to be, and it just started to decline, started to get worse. So the heart transplant was the option. But then you're telling your son that, hey, we're gonna have to do this. This is, you know, the doctor's telling him, you know, and I'm telling him, you know, this is a major surgery, but this can be your way back to normalcy. And then we was also talking about having his trach removed and things like that. And you're trying to speak positive to your son, and you tell him, look, things are getting back to what they need to be. You know, yes, you will have to be on medications for the rest of your life, but you can kind of get your life back to kind of where it needs to be. You know, instead of having all these restrictions. And then at that time as well, they was talking about seeing if they can remove his trach, because you know, having the trach, you guess you can go home with a trach, but because there's an open airway, you know, that has put him at a slightly higher risk of being able to get an infection because of the open spot in his neck. But you know, they have had to do heart transplant on kids who have had trachs before, so this is not something they haven't done before. But if they could have it removed, you know, that would be great. So when you're telling your son all these things, and then here we are in October after you had your trach removed, and he was so happy about it and excited, and I was happy for him too. And just telling him, hey, look, I told you things gonna be better, but then turn around and you have to tell him, I'm sorry, you know, we're gonna have to put the trach back in. And that hurt. It hurt a lot, yo. It did. And he was disappointed and he was hurt, you know. And I told him, you know, one thing he said to me that I was hurt, and I think he was just upset as well. Just overall, the situation was a lot for him. You know, he said, you know, Mom, you lied to me. You told me everything was going to be okay. You told me that we would get back to where it used to be without having to have all this, and then turn around and have to put it back in. You know, that brought tears to my eyes, y'all. It was a lot to deal with. So pretty much I've been yapping for a while, and I did not meant to make this long. It was just meant to give y'all a detailed update on why I had stopped filming and why I had to just add this in real quick. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the vlog here. So yeah, I will see you on the next one, y'all. Bye.